What's up, Brew Brew? Huh? So this clutch arm is out of position. It should be, well, this one is too. They should all be facing toward this center button. So that's come loose. They're all out of position. All right. I'm not sure whether we'll be using this in the build or not. But in either case, if we decide to use it, then I'll need to take it off and fix it. Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Frank here, working on the Cub Cadet forklift. So last time we took the fender pan off and the hood and front grille, and I just finished taking the mower deck off and the mule drive, which is the front pulleys which redirect the drive belt from the PTO down to the mower deck, and then the subframe that supports the mower deck. So that's all off. Going to work on the dash now. I like to get the steering wheel off, the hydro speed control lever, a couple other things off of here, the linkage for the PTO, and we'll take the tonneau cover off, and toward the end of this video we'll pull out the hydraulic pump I have, which has previously been mounted to a frame to fit the rear of the transmission on a tractor like this. It was originally an arrangement I put together for the motor grader. So if you go back to the motor grader build videos back over a year ago, you'll see where I mounted a hydraulic pump to the rear of the transmission. So I wound up not using that on the motor grader, but I still have the pump and the mounting bracket and all that. So we'll come back and I'll show you that and how that mounts. Make some more progress, see how far we can get this episode. Don't need to worry about a cooler, an oil cooler for this installation because it's only operating the lift cylinder of on the mast for the forklift. So it's not going to heat up the oil a whole lot. There's a 2-gallon reservoir in the rear axle, so once we fill the cylinder with fluid, and we'll get a double acting cylinder so that it has fluid on both sides of the piston, so that once that cylinder is full, then we can top off the transmission and we'll have a full transmission and a full cylinder. So it'll just be a matter of circulating it. And looks like Brutus has come in here. Come here, Brew. He was just eating over here. So, what are you doing outside? Anything? You causing any trouble? Where's your brother? Where's your brother? Come here. Come here. Come here. Sit. 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 Excuse me. Did you just burp? Did you just burp? Give me that paw. There you go. You're a good boy. He had a chance to come in here and eat. Some Butchie's outside. Butchie is a little food focused, and he sometimes pushes Brutus out of his dish, so Brutus will sneak in here when Butchie's preoccupied with something, get something to eat. So sometimes I have to watch him, stand and watch him, make sure that Butchie lets Brutus eat. Butchie doesn't need to eat as much as he does. Brutus is a little thin. Anyway, all right. We'll get started on this. All right, when working on these Cub Cadets, the two most difficult things seem to be removal of this speed control lever and removal of the steering wheel. So I've just put a little short pin in there, and I'm going to use this screw to push against that pin to push this lever off. The pin was just a short piece of hex stock. All right, that's working. Alright, so that's actually the method I used when I worked on this tractor last time to get the speed control lever off of this splined shaft. Since I want to reuse this, I want to try to preserve, not damage it. Alright, so the air hammer did not dislodge the steering wheel. It's on the same kind of a spline shaft. I mean, it's hollow as the speed control lever. And, you know, tapping on this and then with a bolt inserted to protect the nut, and then finally with the air hammer, normally they come apart. Some of them are particularly troublesome though, and I don't intend to use the steering column. I have another steering column that has power steering that I plan to use, but I can use the steering wheel, and I actually may have another steering wheel. I probably have another steering wheel someplace, but I would like to take it apart if I can without destroying it. So we'll let it soak for another day. It's been soaking for one day. Now we'll give it another day and see if it'll come apart. Here's the mounting bracket for the hydraulic pump. So I made this for the motor grader and then did not use it. I made a similar one for the tandem dump tractor. So this plate gives access to the transmission. So we clean this off. We'll put some holes through this plate for a suction and return line. This bracket mounts using the same 4 bolts. And then the hydraulic pump will mount here like this. And then there'll be a drive shaft connecting the two, either a coupler. I may use a Lovejoy. On the tandem I used a Lovejoy. This is pretty well aligned, so I may be able to just use a straight coupling, but I might have a Lovejoy that will fit that, and then this gives the hydraulic output. Now this particular pump is a higher output than I think I'm going to want to use. I may want to get a smaller, not sure what, I have to look up the displacement of this, but it's a rather large displacement pump, hence the larger fittings on here. So I think I'm going to wind up probably replacing this pump with a smaller displacement pump. So I don't need as much flow. I need the pressure rather than the flow. So likely, but these pumps come in identical configuration, same bolt pattern, with a wide variety of cubic inch displacements per revolution. This might be and I don't think it's labeled anywhere. Well, it does have a number on it. And I'm not sure. I could look this up and see what the displacement is, but I think the displacement on this pump is going to be too high for this application. But that's how it will mount back here, and it'll be driven by the rear output of the hydrostat. So this spins at engine RPM. This drive shaft goes right through the hydrostat, comes out back here. Some of the hydrostats, this particular hydrostat's used in other applications besides the International Harvester tractors. I imagine it was used in other brand tractors as well. And some are driven through this side rather than this side. So you can drive it from either end, but this one shaft does go all the way through. So that'll spin at engine RPM, which is up to 3,600 RPM. And so you need a hydraulic pump that can handle the RPM, the speed, 3,500, 3,600 RPM. And you can find them, but they're not as common as slower RPM pumps. We'll drive the hydraulic pump that way, and that'll give us the hydraulics we need for the mast lift cylinder as well as the tilt cylinders. The auxiliary hydraulic outputs, this is output and this is input for the hydrostat, and this circuit right now is only used for the lift cylinder, lifts the mower deck up and down. There's a cylinder actuator in there and a valve operated by this handle. So that's the lift. Now if you had other attachments on the tractor, like a rototiller on the back, or a plow, moldboard plow, or a front blade for pushing snow, that lift would lift those things as well, given the right attachments. So it's a big convenience on these tractors, because lifting a rototiller on the back of your tractor is definitely develops some arm strength. But we won't need that, and we use that circuit for the power steering. I've done a couple other things here in the shop. I have covered the wood pile here with fiberglass, fireproof fiberglass blankets. Really, and there's a layer of cotton drop cloths underneath that, and that's to keep, you know, the grit from grinding and sparks. Don't want to ruin it. It's a lot of walnut and cherry lumber under there. Don't want to ruin it, so I probably should have done that before the dozer project, but better late than never, as they say. I did clean it all off and vacuum it and covered it with cotton drop cloths, painter's drop cloths, and then this fireproof fiberglass blankets. And they came off from the surround I had around my plasma table. If you remember last year, I put fiberglass blankets around the plasma table, and I have since come back and replaced those blankets with PVC welding curtains. This is a 6-footer. I have a 8-footer in the back, and then I took a 6-footer and basically cut it in half because I couldn't have it extend out or it would interfere with the jib crane. So I think this is a better, if not more functional, at least better looking arrangement. The reason I have an orange one is because they didn't have any more black ones. And I ordered these through Northern Tool, and I got the black ones, 2 black ones last year, and I had one over in my welding area. I had purchased 2 but only assembled one of them and was using one, so I had the other one to assemble. Went to buy 2 more, and all they had were the orange ones, and these are 8 feet as opposed to 6 feet. So I wound up putting an 8-footer here, which just separates the welding and grinding tasks from the rest of the shop over there. So that's just a easy addition, and I like the fact that this is this is transparent to some extent. The gray ones, the dark gray ones, you can't see through. At least you can see through these to some extent. And I'm not so much trying to protect people from welding the arc when I'm welding, because there's nobody out here, but more just for dust control and spark deflection. So I think those things are a little bit of an improvement here in the shop. I looked up the specs on this pump, and it says on here flow F6.3. So the flow on here, flow rate is 6.3 GPM, and I'm assuming that's at stated speed, which is 3,600 RPM, which would be maximum speed for the engine and this. So that 6.3 GPM, I think it's going to work fine for the flow rate. I was thinking it was going to be too high, but 6.3 GPM. The cylinder that I'm looking at, say it's a 2.5-inch diameter cylinder, 3 feet long. It would be, I think if my calculations are correct, about 3 quarts, hold about 3 quarts of fluid, and so that would fill up in 10 or 10 seconds or so. Or maybe a little bit, depending on the speed of the pump actually, but in under 10 seconds. So it seems like 10 seconds to raise the lift 3 feet, or actually it would be double that, 6 feet, is about right. And I can always, with engine RPM, change that. So it won't always be running at full RPM. So I think the pump will work fine. I went on McMaster-Carr, ordered a Lovejoy fitting, so that'll come in a few days. What I want to do now is go ahead, swap out this transmission plate. Since I already have a plate that I made for the motor grader that has all the penetrations in this plate, suction, return, vent, and fill, if I remember correctly, I'm going to go, since it's still on the motor grader but not being used for anything, I'm going to, rather than building another one, I'm going to take this plate off and swap it with the one on the motor grader. So first thing to do is I just need to clean this off so I don't get a bunch of gunk into the transmission. So here you can see the fluid reservoir, the output shaft from the hydrostat comes in, drives this pinion gear drives a large gear, which drives a differential. Here's the ring gear. So that's fine. I'm going to put a piece of paper towel over it. Let's go get the plate off the motor grader. So go in the garage here. It's pretty much of a mess, but you can see there's my tandem, and there's a 1650 up on the other side of that garden cart, which is tilted up. There's 1450 up there against the front wall. Of course, here's the dozer, which I've moved out here, and here's the motor grader. And for those of you that wanted me to build a backhoe loader, this is my Kubota backhoe loader. So that's the reason I didn't go down that path. So here's the same plate inside the motor grader. As you can see, it already has all the penetrations on it. So I think this is much easier to go ahead and take this plate off, swap plates, than it is to build a new plate. Access is a little tight in here, but I think this is certainly doable and will save me, I don't know, a day or more to build a new plate. Alright, so here you can see the plate. It has the dip tube, and it has two other penetrations, actually three other penetrations here. One is for a vent, one's for a return, one was for a fill. So anyway, so this plate this saves me a lot of effort to build another one of these. Alright, we'll put this plate we just took off back on here. There's no pressure on this sealing surface, so hence the minimal need for gasketing. So that only took about 10 minutes, less than that. So if you haven't seen the videos on the motor grader, you can go back on the channel and look at those. Got the blade circle here with a hydraulic motor that drives the blade circle. There's also a locking pin, hydraulically operated locking pin that locks the blade in position. So it's pretty cool. All right, we'll go back take this back up to the shop. This is my 108. Now it actually has a 12 horsepower engine in it, but which would make it a 128. But it's my weekly mower. I've had this 108 since 1979. So I have had it for 43 years. It's a 1972. It's a 1972 model. We just got some rain. It's very warm and humid here now. As usual, the boys greet me at the door. They're a bit wet because it's been raining. All right, I'm going to just put this on temporarily. I'm going to come back later and replace these bolts with slightly longer ones with lock washers when I install the hydraulic pump. The only thing I have to worry about here is clearance for the Lovejoy fitting here, because this shaft comes back to the pump shaft. I think I have clearance. So this plate will bolt on there using the same 4 bolts. So we'll replace those with new bolts. And then the hydraulic pump attaches right here. Things are escalating here. this point, I'm just destroying the threads on the end of the shaft. So I'm just driving the nut down. There's no way to get a puller on this because the housing is plastic, and anything you try to use as a puller just destroys the plastic. Alright, so I've kind of come to the conclusion that I will have to cut this off. I am, potentially doing even more damage now driving on this to the steering gear. Not that I need the steering gear, but this is one of the most challenging ones I've run into. Hated to do that, but I'll come back and drill this out, remove it somehow. If I decide to reuse this steering wheel, I might have to look and see if I have another one upstairs. Alright, that's it for this episode. I spent 4 days trying to get that steering wheel off. Hated to have to cut it off, but I'm not going to use the steering column. I actually have a couple additional spare steering columns, so not too worried about that. Steering wheel, I'll have to look and see if I have another one. I can potentially still use this one by drilling out the spline shaft that's in there or milling it out. But a little bit of progress this week. That steering wheel kicked my you-know-what. Okay, thanks for watching. Leave a comment. I'll see you guys next week.